Okay, Chad, I've got your little change maker program here that you started. One thing I will mention is I can see if I go to your code window that you did try to change the name of the form, but you notice that some places it still says Form 1. Probably the reason for that is you probably didn't change it in the Solution Explorer window. It is the one thing that you can't just change in the Properties window. You have to come in here to the Solution Explorer window and make sure you leave .vb on the end because it is a file you're dealing with. But if you change it here, and I want to make sure that I'm naming it the same way you did because that's where we can create some problems. But if you do it there, then you should see it change everywhere in your project. It's not going to worry about the case on that. But so do be aware, because sometimes I catch myself trying to take a point away from somebody because I look here in the Solution Explorer window and it still says Form 1 there. So that is something that's a little goofy about naming the form that you have to deal with, doing it in a little bit different spot. It looks like you got everything named on your form correctly. Do try to help yourself out by making the first letter of the descriptive part capitalized. That way when it comes up in the IntelliSense window, it's just easier to pick those things out, but you have all the right prefixes on there. So yes, we're putting in some amount of change, and then it's supposed to tell us how many of each of these coins to give back. Now, one thing I will tell you is what we're looking for here is the number of each of these coins. So it's not decimal. Really, for this, they're integers, right? Because we want to know how many quarters to give the person. We want to know how many nickels to give them. And so we're going to give them a whole integer number of, I'm only going to give them 5 nickels or 2 nickels or whatever. So actually, these are integers. You were right. If we were dealing with coin values, then it would be decimal for currency. But we're not really dealing with the values. We're dealing with how many of them to give back, right? So these would be integers. So this is where you've declared your integers or declared your deals. Okay, so the next step, so this is where you set your variables. The next step in the algorithm that I gave you was get input from the user. Well, if you think about that, they're saying how much change in here, right? Well, we don't have a variable to hold that, so that tells you right now, oh, we're missing one variable, so we should dim. And here again, this is they can't be owed 0.5 cents, so this is an integer too. I'm just going to call it change as integer. Oh, and just changing the first prefix on there doesn't change anything unless I change the variable type, right? So I'll do that on each of these just real quick. Alright, so we've completed the step setting our variables. What's the next step of the 7-step algorithm I gave you? If you keep those steps and refer to those, I think it'll help you out. Well, the next step is get input from the user. Well, which one of these things does the user tell me? Change, right? So int change, and what is it equal to? It's equal to, if I type in a me and a period, I'll get my objects here. Yeah, it's text change dot text, the text property that they put in that text box, right? Now, because it's a number and we're dealing with a string in a text box, I have to put that through a val function, right? But that's get input from the user, right? Well, what's the next step of the algorithm? The next step is perform my calculations, right? So I have change, got it from the user. Now I have to figure out how many of each of these coins to get them. So let's start out with quarters. Well, how many quarters should I give them? That is going to equal the change. And then, well, here I could divide by 25, right? But if I just do regular division by 25, I might get something that's not a whole number, right? And if I put that into this integer, it's maybe going to round up or down. So, but fortunately, we have integer division with the backslash. So if I take it by integer division, then it's just going to give me, it'll ignore the decimal portion of it and just return the whole number portion. So let's say I owe the person 76 cents. If I do integer division by 25, that's going to be 3. There's a penny left over. We don't care about that at this point. We're just trying to figure out how many quarters to give them, and the answer of 3/4 is good. Okay? Now you notice the little green line up here is just saying these are unused variables. As I use them in the program, that'll go away. Well, so I've given them the quarters. Let's say my example was 76 cents again. Now I need to take out the value of the quarters and figure out what's left, right? Well, we have a type of division that actually gives the remainder of what we're divided by, right? So let's look at what I'm actually going to do is put in int change again, because int change needs to change. It needs to hold only what's left. So I could say it equals itself, what it had before, but now you might remember mod division returns the remainder. So if I do mod 25, what it'll do here and again in that example of 76 cents, it's going to divide by 25 but just return the remainder. So all the thing that would be left would be 1 cent, right? So now I've changed the variable int change so it only holds what's left after I take out the quarters. So now then I'm ready to go in here and figure out, well, dime would be the next one, right? So int dimes is going to be equal int change integer division by 10, right? Because if I can take any dimes out of it, that's what I've got. Okay? So then I'll have to change to take out the dimes by mod 25. See the pattern here? But this is the step of my algorithm where I am performing calculations. Okay? After I perform calculations, the next step is to display the answer. So in other words, I've got all these variables holding how many quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies and all that. The user can't see that until I take that value and put it into a label. I'm sure on here you've got label change, right? That now you're probably going to have labels for quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, right, to show how much of each you got to give them back, right? So you're probably going to have to put some more labels over there, but then when you display answer, you're going to take these values, put them in the text properties of those labels, okay? And then lastly, it's prepare for dumb user. And in this instance, anytime you have a program that has a text box like this, you're going to display answers in these labels. If they could come back up here and change the value in here, and these just stay the same, they might get confused. So whenever you have a text box, you should also have a text changed event in there. Get down to the right one here. So there's a text change event that label, quarters, label dimes, all that text should equal nothing again, right? And I can just type 2 quotes back to back. That'll be my step where I prepare for dumb users so they're not confused, right? Hope that helps getting you going. I haven't showed you everything. You got to get the rest of it there on your own. But if you have questions on these, upload them right to the one-on-one support forum. You can attach your projects right to those one-on-one support forum messages that you send me, and you'll get a lot faster response from me because I don't usually look at what's been turned in for the assignment area and you can turn it in the assignment area, but if you do that, send me a message right away so I know it's there that I can send you something to help you. Okay? Good luck. If you got questions, let me know.